Hey everyone, so I'm going to show you how I was able to open up this charcoal canister and replace the activated charcoal and the felt filters to rebuild it, since these are discontinued. So this is the canister for the 6th gen Sambars with the angled ports up at the top. From what I'm seeing, this is the canister for the 5th gen. They're essentially the same thing except for these ports on top. They're the same form factor, same bottom port, same size overall. So these instructions should work for this one as well. That being said, so this canister, you can see at the bottom here, there's a seam where this was glued in or welded or however it was attached. I've tried a few different ways to kind of cut in here to cut this bottom portion off to just remove it intact. All of those attempts were unsuccessful. So what I ended up doing was just using a hammer and a tiny Phillips head screwdriver to just nail down on this seam, and it's going to go through this lip and break out on the other side right here at the wall of the canister. And what I'm going to do is just basically go all around and do that, and it's going to break off this lip, and then that will reveal the seam where this bottom is glued to this portion of the canister, and I can cut at that seam and remove this bottom lid to access everything. At that point, I'll use this little ring that I broke off to help me plastic weld everything back together and to fill that gap. So I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll probably do a time lapse of everything because it's going to take me a while to hammer all around through this. You can see here where my first hit, the screwdriver went down through it and it broke through, touching that wall of the canister on the other side of that ring. So that's what I'm going to do all the way around. So I'm back, and now you can see after that ring's off, there's a seam right here between the lid and the canister. So what I'm going to do is have this little tiny hacksaw. I'm going to try to cut just below the seam, so I'm cutting into the canister rather than the lid to get these two separated. So another time lapse while I do that. So I just want to make a note before I get too far that this port on the bottom here lines up with this mount more or less. I'm just going to make a mark so I remember where to put it, because when it's mounted in the truck, it can make it difficult to attach the hose if it's rotated. So just so I remember where it was pointing, made a mark for myself. All right, it's starting to open up. As you can see, I didn't have to cut too far into it. The canister itself is not very thick. I'm just more or less separating those two parts. You don't want to cut deep into it because you'll end up cutting the lid. All right, so I have a cup ready. I'm going to pry this off. Feels like I need to cut a little bit more here. All right, and there you have it. So this is the bottom of the charcoal canister. You see the hole to the port right there. Here's the bottom felt filter. And there is the charcoal. So we'll pour it out. Yeah, it is. It reeks of gas. And then at the bottom, you'll have another felt filter. So let me grab a pick. Trying to get it out without damaging it. It's the hardest part because I need it to trace the pattern for a new filter. There we go. And then there's one more filter, dead center. We'll also take that out and replace it. Okay. So there we go. It's all disassembled. We have the top felt filters, the bottom felt filter, and all of the charcoal. There was a few YouTube people that I saw that reactivated this with just a torch. I mean, it wasn't super expensive, so I'm just going to replace it. So what we have is some aquarium activated carbon charcoal. I got this off of Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can find it at the pet store as well. It was pretty cheap. I'm sure it was like 12 or 15 bucks or something like this for this large container. And then for the felt, also grabbed this off of Amazon, but I'm sure that like Michael's or a craft or a fabric store would have the same thing. This is 2 mil stiff felt. So I'll trace out the old filters, cut them to size, and throw them back in. May blow out there's some charcoal residue. I'm not sure if it shows in the video, but there's some residue kind of caked in at the bottom of here. So I'll get all that out. That's on the other side of the filters where there shouldn't be any carbon. So at some point, some of it leaked through. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, ended up redoing that little small center one. I wasn't happy with the first one, so I recut another one. Both of those are down in the bottom now. Just make sure there's no gaps, large gaps around the outside or inside anywhere that the charcoal could leak past, because then you'll clog up all your hoses. So now we're going to put the new carbon in. So this is fresh activated charcoal. It doesn't take very much to fill up these tiny little canisters. And I'm just going to lightly pack it down. I'm not going to go crazy with it, you know. I don't want to condense it so much to where air can't get through, but just to help it settle, to make sure I have it pretty full. It may be over full, but let me check. So I'll put my filter in place, and yeah, that's too full. I'm not able to close it, so let's take some of that out. Okay, not sure if you can hear it on camera, but there's just a tiny bit of shaking around, and I'm able to press the lid all the way down against the seam. So now comes the fun part. We get to plastic weld all of this back together. All right, so now I have a plastic welding kit. This is from Harbor Freight. I think it was 20 bucks. You know, there's nicer ones out there. I'm sure that makes it easier to use, but you know, for what it is, this will do. Probably should have plugged it in and let it heat up, so I'll cut to 10 minutes from now when this is nice and hot. Okay, now that my iron is nice and hot, I'm going to weld this back together. So I'm going to go over it twice. First, I'm going to go, I make sure I lined up my port back with my mark that I made. I'm just going to go and kind of dig the iron into both sides of the plastic and kind of join them together, and just kind of, you know, weld those two together, if you will. I'm then going to go back across it and with this ring that I chiseled off at the beginning, and I'm just going to kind of spread this out just to melt over that joint between these two pieces. So with both of those passes, it should make an airtight seal, and if not, we can go back a third time and fix any trouble spots. So I'm about to put on a respirator because this thing gives off some crazy chemicals as you're burning it, so I recommend you do the same. You only have one set of lungs. Okay, so I think it's all welded back together. Just note, try not to bump this port when you're in there with the iron. I think I touched it a few times, but it seems to be okay. And then from there, just check to make sure you have airflow through it. You know, blow in each of the ports and then make sure you have air coming out the two other ports. You know, just do that for each one. Air should be flowing both ways. You can put, you know, blow into one, block the other two. And if you want to just kind of do a soapy water test just to see if there's any air bubbles around here. If there are, get your iron and just try to fix those. But yeah, I think we're done. So, all in all, I think between the felt and the activated carbon, it was probably 25 bucks of supplies to fix this, another $20 for the plastic iron. So it's a pretty easy fix. If you want to, it'd probably be a good idea to, there's 2 other valves that are going to and from these 2 top ports. Go ahead and check those, make sure there's no debris in them. I believe both of them should have air flowing both ways. Make sure, and if you want to replace your lines, what I found fit is 5/32, which is 4 millimeters. For the small one, for the bigger one up top is 1/4, which I assume the original one was probably 6 millimeters, but I couldn't find that here in the US. So I just had to go with 1/4 fuel injection hose, which is 6.35. It still fits pretty good. This one in particular does have a clamp on it, so even if it is just a tiny bit oversized, this will kind of keep it on there nice and snug. Oops. And then the bottom one I found 5/16, which is 7.9 millimeters. Again, I'm assuming the factory was probably 8 millimeters, but I couldn't find that here in the States. So with all that said, that's all there is to it. Best of luck to anyone out there who wants to attempt this themselves. If you come across this in the future and you have any questions, just let me know. I'll try to answer them if I can.